the plot, the heartbreaking conclusion, the entire novel, which suddenly becomes one you've never read, never even heard of. As if, one by one, the memories you used to harbor decide to retire to the southern hemisphere of the brain, to a little fishing village where there are no phones. Long ago, you kissed the names of the 9 muses goodbye and watched the quadratic equation pack its bag. And even now, as you memorize the order of the planets, something else is slipping away. A state flower, perhaps, the address of an uncle, the capital of Paraguay. Whatever it is you are struggling to remember, it is not poised on the tip of your tongue, not even lurking in some obscure corner of your spleen. It has floated away down a dark mythological river whose name begins with an L as far as I can recall. Well, on your own way to oblivion, where you will join these who have even forgotten how to swim or how to ride a bicycle. No wonder you rise in the middle of the night to look up the date of a famous battle in a book on war. No wonder the moon in the window seems to have drifted out of a love poem that you used to know by heart.
Billy Collins' poem Forgetfulness is a smiling version of losing our memory as we age. I know some of you have had far more difficult experiences with dementia in a parent, a sibling, or a partner. My story this morning is somewhere between Billy Collins' smiling version and the heartbreaking version. It's about me and a close friend. We met as college freshmen, 18. We have shared many ups and downs since then. It's been clear to us for a long time that we are, till death do us part, friends, or probably friends till neither of us is alive. And Barbara now has 2 kinds of dementia, the kind that comes with advanced Parkinson's and the kind known as Alzheimer's. This story is about trying to learn how to talk to Barbara when she is sometimes in a reality that doesn't match mine. An earlier lesson for me was that you can lose some of your brain functions while holding on to others. Barbara could be very with it about one thing, but not know what month or day of the week it was. Here's a poem I wrote during that earlier time. For so long I was trying to make sense of her making a great observation while not even knowing what room she was in. For so long, and I'd run out of E.B. White to read on the phone, when she said, "Let's each pick a poem and say why we picked it." Let me never decide she isn't there. Let me never give up. Not on her. She is there. After learning that Barbara could be confused about time and space, those were the first things to go, but still be brilliant about other things. Came wondering how much I should enter into a hallucination she was sharing with me. Should I clarify for her, as in, no, that's not your brother in the next room, it's your husband? Or no, I couldn't visit your parents in California because remember, they aren't there anymore. Wouldn't I want to be clarified, set straight about these things, reoriented, if I were in an alternate reality? When I started asking such questions, not just to myself, but to others, I found very helpful answers. I put them together to be able to use them myself and to pass them on. I started by emailing Ruth, an old friend who has worked for the Alzheimer's Society, both as a social worker and as an administrator. She also has a mother with dementia and shares her travels with artists with hundreds of us on Facebook. These travels include mostly verbal exchanges between Ruth and her mom, who is currently in a nursing home. With more than a full-time job, Ruth still manages to visit artists almost every day, and they are obviously still having a great time, a lot of laughs, and plenty of love for each other. So Ruth has already been modeling for me how to talk with someone with dementia. When she explained what she explained in a personal email is that the person with dementia mostly wants to feel listened to, heard, cared about, not to be told they are wrong. Ruth she also referred me to YouTube videos made by a lovely and funny woman named Teepa Snow. She's from Appalachia. Those videos show Teepa training caregivers how to talk with the people they work with. I may never forget Teepa's lesson about helping someone with Lewy body dementia off the toilet, but I will have more use for another Teepa lesson. When your person asks if they've told you something they might have told you 50 times already, you should say, "Tell me about it." That opens the door to conversation and to both of you feeling connected instead of slamming the door with the truth. At a meeting of our First Parish Aging Together group, I mentioned going soon to visit my Brooklyn friend and wondering how our conversations would go. Later that day, I got an email from Reverend Lisa. Her mother had had dementia, and Reverend Lisa, with a theater background, told me that she looked back on conversations with her mother as improvisation. Useful concept. You have no idea what's coming conversationally, and you have various ways you can go with it. Try to add to what the other person says rather than subtract from it. Our Mary Blanchette, a retired physician's assistant, told me she'd be happy to talk with me about her experiences with dementia. So then I heard Mary's stories and suggestions. One thing Mary told me was that while being corrected can be appreciated at the beginning of dementia, it is more likely to be hurtful as the dementia develops. The word that stands out to me from my conversation with Mary is consoling. If the person apologizes for what they can't remember or do anymore, one can say, "You know, it's not your fault." Mary said it would be great, and I thought it would be, if I could model that for anyone around my friend. Barbara has other close friends besides me. She and Judy go back to grade school together. Barbara and Colleen were lawyers together until they switched gears and became, respectively, a psychotherapist and a chaplain. Colleen told me that during one visit, Barbara said she'd been afraid that Colleen wouldn't be able to understand her anymore. Colleen had laughed and said, "Oh, we've been on the same wavelength forever, haven't we?" Judy is an early childhood expert. She emailed that there's a similarity to talking with a young child. Listen and affirm. The facts don't matter as much as the compassionate acknowledgement that the speaker is being heard. This reminds me that when Barbara first got the official diagnosis of Alzheimer's, this was long after the diagnosis of Parkinson's, she wanted to be in charge of who would know and when. Why? Because she was afraid of being discounted, dismissed, devalued. She wanted to stay connected, attached, and valued as long as possible. I've been thinking it's like when someone shares a dream with you. You don't argue with what they tell you. You respect it as a version of their reality and something they really did experience, even if they were asleep and even if it was encoded in metaphor. There can be emotional truths that you might not learn any other way. For example, Barbara recently told me that she had finally finished her dissertation. I knew she had abandoned a dissertation 20 years ago, and I would have said she felt good about deciding to do that. But part of her must have been bothered by it, and somehow her dementia was allowing her to finish her dissertation, or on another level, to let go of regret that she hadn't finished it. I said, "That's great, wonderful, congratulations." But I didn't want to ask questions or bring it up again. I didn't want to burst that bubble of relief or resolution. And I didn't want to embarrass her if she were seeing that she had been not really finishing her dissertation. If following someone into what they are experiencing, being there in it with them, helps them feel more connected, less alone, why correct? Isn't someone's other reality worthy of attention and interest? It's not only that we can learn from it, we and they can possibly have fun, even some laughs with it. After all my preparation, I did feel more at ease with Barbara during our next visit. I clarified for her when it seemed practical to do so. No, we can't go out for a walk, just the two of us. I can't handle getting you outside and into your wheelchair. No, your sister isn't arriving tomorrow. I'll be here with you myself until Friday. But when Barbara told me in front of her husband to look around and see what I would like to take home with me, anything in the house, she said, it was improv time. In other words, what the heck do I say to that? It took me a moment before I said, "Would you like to give me your husband?" Of course, that would have been a bad choice if there had ever been any serious flirtation between Barbara's husband and me. But there hadn't been. All three of us had a big laugh, felt in this together, and that felt wonderful. May we all love and honor each other amid all our diverse and changing abilities and disabilities. May we manage to be kind to each other and forgiving to ourselves to the end. Amen. And I thought I had this service all planned out. You know, I've had the whole summer to think about what to do. And that I was all finished planning it. And then 3 days ago, I stumbled across this poem by Mary Oliver. It's called "In Praise of Craziness of a Certain Kind." On cold evenings, my grandmother, with ownership of half her mind, the other half having flown back to Bohemia, spread newspapers over the porch floor so, she said, her garden ants could crawl beneath as under a blanket and keep warm. And what shall I wish for myself but being so struck by the lightning of years, to be like her with what is left, that loving. So now I would like us to have a few moments of silence, and then we'll go on from there. I wanted to share my joy this morning at having some special people here with me. All of you are special to me, believe me. But this feels sort of like my team. Many of you know my partner, Owen, and his son is here, Alec, and my good friend, Joyce, whom many of you know. She lives in Milton, too. And you know her as a painter or as a clothing designer or possibly other ways as well. And my friend Peggy, who came on a bus from Greenfield, which is a long bus trip. And and then I have a few friends here online with us, and so welcome and thank you to everyone.
Best thing about Unitarian is we are not organized religion. It's mildly disorganized and happy to be together. Let's see. The offering. Today's offering is dedicated to the services and ministry of First Parish, Milton. To give, simply text 617-593-7576 with the amount you'd like to give. They're also offering plates in the front and the back of the church. And the number is on the laminated card in your pew. Awesome. If you would be kind enough to join me in the unison dedication on the laminated card in your pew. May these gifts be transformed into strength for this faith community, into comfort, food, and shelter for those in need, and may we be transformed by generosity.
along with dousing the chalice candle, I want to read a blessing which is called Gloria by Reverend Barbara Pierce Peskin, I think is her name. And I think of this as a super UU blessing because it borrows from several religions and several languages. Gloria, the tenacity of earth and its creatures. Kyrie eleison, these children who will go on to save what we cannot. Baruch atah Adonai, the ordinary tenacity of plants and people. The center of the universe, which is everywhere, not the least place in the human heart. Alleluia, love that survives anger and winter and despair and sorrow and even death. Shalom, love that persists. Nam Yoho Renge Kyo, calm that is the seed in the dark. Amen, for endings that are beginnings, for beginnings that are endings. Alleluia, for the circle, the spiral, the web, the egg, the orbit, the center, the seed, the flower, the fruit, the opening, the death, the release, the seed. Amen, we are going on. Amen, it is going on. Amen, blessed be.